So this has to be the most savage Elon Musk moment of all time. He absolutely crushes this BBC idiot here. So let's see.
And we've spoken to people very recently who are involved in moderation, and they just say there's not enough people to police this stuff, particularly around hate speech in the company.
What hate speech are you talking about? I mean, you use Twitter,
right?
Do you see a rise in hate speech?
I mean,
but just a personal anecdote, like what did you? I don't.
Personally, for you, I would see I get more of that kind of content personally. But I'm not going to talk to the rest of for the rest of Twitter.
You see more hate speech personally?
I would say I would see more hateful content in that.
Content you don't like or hateful? What do you mean to describe a hateful thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so he asks him the key question here: content you don't like. Or is it hateful, or is it just something you don't like, okay? Coming from a person, perhaps, that you don't like, maybe an orange man, or something like that, or someone who calls himself a top G, for example, See where I'm going with this? Okay, so let's see the sorry excuse of an explanation or an answer that this, dare I call him journalist? Am I allowed? Should I call him a journalist? I don't know. Activist pretending to be a journalist? Whatever. He's a moron.
I mean, just content that will solicit a reaction, something that may include something that is slightly racist or slightly sexist, those kinds of things.
So you think if something is slightly sexist, it should be banned?
No.
So slightly, the slightly word's hilarious. So slightly, if something's slightly bothersome, it's just slightly expanding the Overton window, we need to shut it down quickly, okay? And if Elon Musk doesn't do that, it must mean he's a national socialist or something.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything. I'm
just curious. I'm trying to understand what you mean by hateful content. And I'm asking for specific examples. And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
Well, you've asked me whether my feed, whether it's got less or more. I'd say it's got slightly more.
That's why I'm asking for examples. Can you name one example?
I honestly don't use. Honestly,
you can't name a single example.
I'll tell you why. Because I don't actually use that feed anymore. Because I just don't particularly like it.
But you said
a lot of people are quite similar.
So. Okay, so let's try to break this down. If you dare, bear with me here, and let's try to do this without losing our minds. So, without getting a headache, right? So, he says there's slightly more hateful and misogynistic content or whatever. These are just labels. These are just subjective terms, But anyway. Let's say, according to him, that apparently it's true. So it's a slightly increasing the hateful content. Okay. So then Elon goes on to ask, okay, so give me at least one example. And his answer is like, all right. So let's continue the circus.
Hang on a second. You said you see more hateful content, but you can't name a single example, not even one.
I'm not sure I've used that feed for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, then how did you see the hateful content?
So now he says he hasn't used it for about a month, and he magically. Sorry, this is not. I mean, this is not act laughing. This is real. I'm cracking up here. I can't control myself. This is. I'll just let him destroy himself. No need to comment.
Because I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen that you hateful content. And I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give us a one.
And I'm saying,
I say so that you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet. And yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
that's false.
No. What I
create a slide.
What I can there are many
savage
that say that that kind of information is on the rise. Now, whether it has on my feed or not, I mean, and if you look at something like the Strategic Dialogue Institute in the UK, they will say that.
He can't give one effing example of what he's complaining about. So, you know, maybe I can make a separate video on this at some point. The dictionary definition of insanity, and then play some clips of a guy like him, and then you know, juxtapose, like, look at the definition of insanity, see how people like him behave, and you know, the only conclusion, the logical, the non-insane conclusion will be he's acting irrationally. Okay, he's an irrational actor, right? Honestly, I mean, you can't complain about something, especially to the owner of a company. I mean, Elon Musk, the owner of Twitter, and he's saying, well, hateful content, this and that, increase apparently in hateful content. Give me one example. He's been using it in the last 6 months that Elon has taken over. One, he can't give one effing example, okay? And in the past 3-4 weeks, he hasn't even he hasn't been looking at the feed because it hurts his feeling, because he doesn't particularly like it. I don't quite like it, so you know.
So look, people will say all sorts of nonsense. I'm literally asking for a single example. You can name one.
Right, and as I already said, I don't use that feed. But
then how would you know? You literally said you experienced more hateful content, and then couldn't name a single example. That's absurd.
It's absurd. That's what I should have said before. Yeah, absurd. He couldn't have put it better. But insane as well. You know, clinically insane, like I said a minute ago. But yes, also absurd. Best word to describe what we're witnessing here, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry to subject you to this, but we must face the reality of the decline of the West that's happening before our eyes, because if we don't face it head on, it's just going to get worse and worse. We won't be able to fix it. Elon here handled it very well. Like, he called him out. This guy now, definitely must have taken a massive hit to his clout, let's say, okay? People are going to be ridiculing this guy forever now, okay? At least for the next few months.
Looked at that feed.
Then how would you know if it's hateful content?
Because I'm saying that's what I saw a few weeks ago. I can't give you an exact example. Let's move on. We only have a certain amount of time.
Unbelievable. Let's move on. It's like when someone's gaslighting you, some sociopath, some narcissist drains you, Agent Smiths you. It's like a verb I made up from the Agent Smiths, the agents in the Matrix. Anyway, certain people get it, some won't. But someone vampirizes you, you know, just drags you down, gaslights you, like I said, and then you fight back, and you're right. They are a legitimate psychic vampire, and they're in the wrong, and you're in the right. So then the only thing they can do is just retreat and say, oh, they changed the subject. Oh, this is going nowhere. So you know, let's change the subject. You know, I don't know. It's unbelievable. We're being gaslit. The entire planet's being gaslit by the BBC, but all the fake news, really. Well, not all of it, but vast majority. But especially BBC. It's probably the worst. That and CNN, worst on the planet.
Misinformation. You changed the COVID misinformation.
Has BBC changed its COVID misinformation?
The BBC.
So now he changes. He shifts the discussion, the conversation to the COVID misinformation. And Elon checkmates him by saying, has the BBC changed their policy on the COVID misinformation? Now, the fact that, as he will explain in a bit, the fact that he's referring to the fact that the BBC take responsibility for the fact that they didn't divulge the full truth about the jabs, etc. Let's see.
Not set the rules on Twitter, so I'm asking you.
No, I'm talking about the BBC's misinformation about COVID.
The silence. The silence was deafening. I'm talking about the BBC's on misinformation, and the pause was like, okay, it was like at least 2 or 3 seconds, but he didn't. The guy didn't know what to say, and now it's just talking shit again.
You changed the labels, the COVID misinformation labels. There used to be a policy, and then that disappeared. Why do that?
Mic drop again.
Well, COVID is no longer an issue.
Yeah.
Does the BBC hold itself at all responsible for misinformation regarding masking and side effects of vaccinations? And not reporting on that at all? And what about the fact that the BBC was put under pressure by the British government to change its editorial policy? Are you aware of that?
This is not an interview about the BBC.
Well.
It wasn't.
I think it is.
I'm not a representative of the BBC editorial policy, I want to make that clear. Let's talk about something else.
Okay, so that was it. Absolutely incredible. Fascinating stuff. I mean, where are we living? We must be living in a simulation. I mean, since this is about Musk, he talks about the simulation perhaps being real. Well, I think he actually believes it for real. I think he literally thinks that we're in a Matrix type of thing, like in the Matrix that's shown in the Matrix franchise, the films. I don't know what to say. I don't understand how someone can complain about something on Twitter, some speech they don't like, and then they cannot give a single example for a 6-month period. I mean, granted, he wasn't watching his feed for about a month. Okay, so 5 months. When did Musk take over? Like October last year, October 22, September, October, towards the last few months of 2022, and now we're into April, so it's been about 6 months. Okay, I think it's sunk in. See what I did there? That joke, that dad joke that he made when he first walked into Twitter with a sink. So he let it sink in now. It's been 6 months. People are kind of over it. The outrage is not as bad as it was in the first few weeks when he took over. Thank God that he did, by the way. I mean, all these people, I don't want to distract from the specific topic of this video, but all these people that think Musk is somehow part of this whole World Economic Forum gang, and all these types that are anti-humanity, they think he's part of it because why? Do you have a single reason? Just like this BBC guy. Do you have an actual reason? Oh, the Neuralink. Oh my God, the Neuralink. How's that proof? Write an essay. Make like a half-an-hour video with citations, in-depth explanations, proper arguments, logical argument. But anyway, I'm veering off now. Perhaps I'll speak about this specific thing another time. But as for this particular thing that we witnessed, it just really defies explanation. I mean, how is it possible? How is it possible that it didn't have one example? Just off the top of his head, he could have just said something. It didn't have to be 100% specific. He didn't literally have to bring up the tweet in his mind like a computer, like having the Twitter feed right in his brain in the Neuralink thing. Whatever it's going to be, we're going to have like the metaverse Neuralink connection, metaverse, whatever you want to, some kind of made-up term for this new thing that's going to be like the next level after the internet. But it didn't have to be specific to the point of like showing him a bloody printout of the tweet that bothered him, like to just bring it out on the spot and say, yes, this was the tweet. But say something. Bloody say something approximating the tweet or the person or the organization, the group that posted specific. I mean, I don't know. It's probably because he saw some stuff, maybe Andrew Tate, because he's back on Twitter now, thank God, because, it means Twitter is just going to be way funnier, much more entertaining and truthful. So he probably saw some people retweeting Andrew Tate and other stuff like that, or perhaps some conservative names got retweeted, saying the standard conservative stuff, which to someone like him, to a BBC talking head, would be, all of it would be far right, of course. Anything to the right of Stalin for these people is just evil. But it's just absolutely astounding to me that, I'm happy that someone like Musk has called him out here, and he's calling people like these out in general, especially after he took over Twitter. But it's amazing that, like, in the absence of a Musk or a Donald Trump or an Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson, we would be already in Orwell's 1984. I mean, we pretty much are 70% there, but we would have been 98% there if figures like Musk and Tate and Trump and Jordan Peterson, etc., didn't exist. So, sorry. It's just amazing. I mean, I really don't really have any psychological analysis of it or really rational explanation. All I'm doing is just complaining now, I guess, because you can't make this stuff up. It's amazing. This is amazing. Like, he didn't even, like, he's complaining about it and he doesn't even know what it is. Okay, so it's, these people are in a cult. It's a mind control cult. Honestly, it's like a religion. It's like a destructive cult. You know the term destructive cults? There's a lot of them around. Always have been, especially now. This new age, the information age, where any Tom, Dick and Harry can just come out and make up his own ideology from scratch and get followers, okay? So there's a big percentage of people that are fakes. So we have a lot of cults, a lot of destructive cults. And one of the biggest ones is this far left virus, this cancer, okay, this mind virus that is just taking over the West, is just spreading all around the planet like a cancer, honestly. And it's being spread by these entities like the BBC and so on. BBC and Friends. Okay? And Musk is right. He said that he said in this interview also that basically the BBC is a government funded corporation, which it is. Okay, it's an arm of the British government. This is why so many people they troll and they call it British Brainwashing Corporation. You know, there's that meme that goes around about that. So I don't know what to say, ladies and gentlemen. All I can do is just react and comment on things like these and laugh when the Elon Musks of the world troll these people and destroy these people with their savage comebacks. But at the end of the day, it's about truth. The reason I was just belly laughing before, like so spontaneously, is because I think it's very akin, it's very similar to, like, say, you know, a child that's been abused, or like, let's say you're a prisoner of war, okay? POW. You know, like those missing in action, like the good old days, those Chuck Norris, that Chuck Norris trilogy, Missing in Action, or like Rambo, the first one, you know, in the beginning before he's freed, where has all these, he's got PTSD because he's got all these memories of being a prisoner. Or whatever, you're in jail or something like Tate was, or whatever, like Andy, Shawshank Redemption, and then you're finally free. You're finally freed, okay? So it's like having this weight on your shoulders, like imagine carrying like a super heavy, like getting a backpack and filling it with all these weights, you know, going to the gym and like putting all these like 20 kilo, you know, 40-pound plates in there, as much as it can hold without ripping it, and then putting it on your back and walking around all day with a thing like that, and then doing it the next day as well, and then continually doing it for years, and then or like putting weights, you know, those weights that people wear on their feet to run with the weights, so I don't know, so then running can become easier when they do it without them. So, but having these things on for years and years on end, and then thinking, like being born with it, and then thinking that this is normal. Okay, and now a situation like this, or similarly, back in 2016 when Trump came out and it was like a nuclear attack on fake news, and it was hammering them constantly, you are fake news, you are fake news. It was like the feeling you get with stuff like that, or like with Andrew Tate dropping truth bombs about so many things, not about women. It's not like, he only talks about that about 10% of the time, and most of it is in the context of dating and like how to get women by becoming a high value man. The rest, he talks about the financial situation and the banking system, and he was talking about the COVID, he was talking about how governments control people and that you have to have multiple passports and stuff. That's why they don't like him. It's nothing to do with them. I mean, those girls that they ask, those little 20-year-old girls that they ask on the streets and who say they hate Andrew Tate, they don't know. They haven't watched any of his long form stuff. So, but all this stuff, the Trump attacks and the fake news, this thing we watch now with Musk, all that, it's like the equivalent. It's like the psychological or mental or spiritual equivalent of, after years, after decades of wearing that backpack that weighs 100 kilos, or 200 pounds for you Yankees, you finally take it off, and then you're walking around, you feel so light, and you're thinking, what is this normal? No one told me that this was actually normal. I thought the normal was wearing this, having this monkey on my back all my life. Okay, so we're born into this system, this matrix, where it's like, we think it's normal to be gaslit by a-holes like that guy, the BBC guy, and many others, you know, CNN, MSNBC, however many of them. I mean, I'm in Greece at the moment. I mean, you see my Greek statues here. So I'm a dual citizen, Greek and Australian citizen. That's why I have the Australian accent. So the fake news, the reason I'm saying this is because I've lived in Australia most of my adult life, so there was a ton of fake news there. I'm now back in Greece. I was here as a teenager as well in my high school days, and now I'm back in Greece, living permanently here. So I'm seeing the same situation. So basically, I see in 4 different countries, at least, at minimum 4. You have the US, which I follow always through YouTube and stuff. The US political happenings, of course, because it's the center of the world. The UK, Greece, and Australia. So all those 4 countries, the fake news basically operates in exactly the same way, pretty much identical. Okay, the politics might be slightly different. For example, in Greece here, it's a strange, not strange situation, different situation. It's good, as a matter of fact. I mean, we have a centre-right government that's in power at the moment, so probably that helps. But in general, it looks like there's this stranglehold that the left, far left, even we could say, this stranglehold that it has over American society, and to a lesser extent Australian and British. It's not as bad in places like Greece. Like, it's kind of like an even mix. So you can basically go out on TV and say whatever you want. I mean, there's no such, like, what I'm saying basically is that this concept of cancellation, we don't even have a word for it. Like, there's no, much like how the Japanese borrow a lot of American words to augment their vocabulary for words that they don't actually have their own terms for. We do that a lot here in Greece too. So perhaps there might be some Greeklish word. Greeklish is like combination of Greek and English, so it means those bastardized words that we sort of, like, we take from English, but we sort of Greekify them, similar to what I said about the Japanese before. Probably some people that are in the know, that they watch the American political happenings from here. They probably use that term and they vaguely understand it, but no, it doesn't exist as a concept. What I'm saying is that I'm in a unique position where I'm very well versed in the Anglo-spheric ways, fortunately or unfortunately, because I was in the worst English-speaking country of all time, which is Australia. This is an objectively true fact, an axiomatic fact, what I just said. I mean, they had... you could almost say that they were gulags, what they did. They had set up COVID gulags in the great state of Victoria. Okay. So I'm lucky I left Australia just before COVID hit. But anyway, I'd have to say that I'm well versed in the ways of the Anglosphere, and I can safely say that comparatively, in a place like Greece and probably all the sort of Greece, Russian style type of countries, basically the Orthodox Christian nations, these concepts would not even exist, like even as an idea. I mean, we wouldn't even need to have a word that, to describe cancellation. Okay, so this is exclusively, well, first and foremost, American. I guess the whole trend started from there. But because Twitter and all these other companies, Twitter, Facebook, social media in general, all these social media companies, the Silicon Valley companies, because they're based in the English-speaking world, all these inventions, let's say, innovations, that were created in America, so they become most popular. They get exported first in the other English-speaking countries like the UK, Australia, Canada, and so on. And then there's like a second tier, like places like that are, I don't know, like here, like Greece or wherever else, so any country you can think of that's not English-speaking. All the European countries, for example, Italy, Germany, whatever. They have English as a second language, and they're very interested in whatever happens in America and all the new stuff that comes from America. But it doesn't immediately affect the non-English speaking societies. Certainly the Western ones, like I said, like the European countries that are that their first language is not English, we would be the second like I said before, like it's the second tier of where this sort of these Americanisms trickle down, and then they'll take even longer to sort of catch on in other places like, I don't know, India and so on. Japan would be another one as well that would be very high on the list on the pyramid of these things trickling down and catching on quickly from America to other places. So places like Japan and the rest of the former British colony lands, like the SHIT whole called Australia and Canada, stuff like that. But the point I'm making those here is that what we just witnessed there with this guy, it doesn't really happen anywhere else. This is exclusively a Britishism / Americanism. Like, I don't know what it is. I would have to say that the only explanation is probably because, really, if you look at it, the New World, this thing that we call the New World Order, it comes from London. It's headquartered in London, the city of London. Okay, so it all starts from there. So this whole model of controlling a society, of taking over the world, of globalizing the planet, if they could, they would love to do it if they could take over and globalize the entire planet. They had 25% of it back in the day, Britain, that is. It is a completely unique model in all of history. There's been many European empires in the colonial days, and very unfortunately, people today, non-white people, especially in the US today, they wrongly conflate, they confuse all whites with British, with the Anglo-Saxon Empire, with the British Empire, and the way the British Empire operated, like the things that they did in order to take over, versus what other empires did, it's like night and day. So everybody now, because most people are clueless about history and in general, like, I mean, have you seen what you got to look at is people's vocabulary in general. Like, you look at how many people, like with these street interviews and so on, you see people answering the most basic questions and they don't know things about, like, capital cities of, the capital of Japan or whatever, like basic things like that. And you can see, like, from the way they talk, that they have a vocabulary of a 12-year-old. All right, and these people are supposed to be people that went through high school and perhaps are going to college, a lot of them, and many of them might have good jobs. You see people interviewing them, like in places like in the streets of New York and stuff like that. So I would imagine that there's a lot of high-paying corporate jobs over there, and still, like, the way these people speak, it's like, so this is a sign of just an intellectual decline, like an IQ. IQ is just slowly, gradually dropping in the West. So, and within that whole package of ignorance is, like I said a couple of minutes ago, that people don't know the history, and they complain, they compare, they think that all whites, they basically look at someone of British background. How could I? WASP, okay, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. The people of British extraction that are like 4th or 5th generation Americans or whatever, who were the undisputed ruling class about, like before World War II, about 100 years ago, So that thing, so that's what, like all the non-European people that are not of European background in America, they call that, the WASP, they call them white. So what about, okay, so is an Italian American included in that? Is an Irish American included in that? I mean, look what the Irish went through, potato famine and so on. They got nothing to do with the English, okay? I mean, they're part of the United Kingdom. I think part of Ireland is anyway. The Greeks. What about the Greeks? If you read on Alexander the Great, you'll see that the way he ran his empire was diametrically opposite to the way the British Empire did it. Diametrically opposite, 180 degrees different. So, German Empire, again, it was different. Some similarities to the British, but not that many. French, completely different again. So, really got to drive it home. I really got to get this point across here, that what this spider's web, like the center of the spider's web is in London, and what this particular spider's web is doing to the world is not at all indicative of how white people are in general, how white civil culture is in general, how white empires have operated in general. I mean, tooting my Greek horn here a little bit, just for a second, since I mentioned Alexander the Great. It's very easily Googleable. You can just Wikipedia him for 2 seconds and you'll see that the vast majority of places that he went to and took over, they basically welcomed him as a liberator. They loved it. This is real, and it's not like, oh, history is written by the winners, and if he lost, he wouldn't have been saying that. I don't think so. It's not that easy to falsify absolutely everything. Eventually, something's going to leak out. It was legitimately that what he did was offer them a far better template of how to run their society. Basically, they were living under tyrants, okay, under theocracies and tyrannies. All right, so he showed this very much more advanced Western way of being, where everyone has got a say in society, and it's pretty much freedom of speech, freedom of movement. They were like, wow, this never occurred to us. This is fucking amazing. A lot of people say that the British Empire did the same. Like, it's kind of like an upgraded version of that ancient Greek thing. It is in many ways. I mean, they have the Beatles and Monty Python, so there you go, and Richie Blackmore. So already, those three things, it's like they're already 80% there of laying claim to the title of taking the ancient Greek thing like to the next octave up, and then going global with it, which that's pretty much what they did. But it's just the methods that they used, the brainwashing techniques. I mean, you've heard of Tavistock and all this stuff. I'm not going to get into a lengthy thing here with that, but the point is that, I mean, this is the BBC, for Christ's sake, the video, the reaction video here with this journalist. Is he a journalist? I don't know what this guy is. He's certainly not of sane mind, I can tell you that. So it's just, this is like a cancer. This type of, like, this is not what the West is meant to be. It's like a dark, it's kind of like whatever okay, unfortunately it's the British Empire now, it's not the Byzantine Empire or Hellenistic world of Alexander, whatever, or something, or like the French, because I quite like them. I mean, maybe I don't like their postmodernist stuff, but it was a pretty solid empire, okay, contributed a hell of a lot to European civilization. So it's just the way this British thing, the way they operated, the way they ran their operation, it's a better way of putting it. How can I put it? It's basically like an inverted, perhaps even evil way of doing things. Like they did it. It was all about, order out of chaos, problem, reaction, solution, control the position, agents, getting people to putting agents on both sides and going into some country like India, for example, and getting two different tribes to fight each other so they can then take over. Well, in China, because they controlled China for a number of years as well. Some people might not know that. They controlled them through opium, basically. So the method is like confuse people, control the position, tactics, control both sides, get them to fight, and then when they've exhausted themselves, we go in and take over. Things like potato famine with the Irish, scorched earth, starve the people that are too belligerent, that won't accept their rule, okay? Dumb people down. It's all just a very sort of satanic kind of black magic, like MK Ultra-ish way of doing things. It's not like there's no authentic masculinity in there. There's no like, I'm going to come in like Braveheart, okay, like William Wallace, and just like take whatever I take. It's like the concept of becoming a king by your own hand, okay? That's not how the British Empire did it. It was like they had, like I said, I don't want to keep repeating it, they had all these policemen, agents. Banking is another thing. I mean, the City of London, for Christ's sake. I mean, it's the centre, the world headquarters of the banking system. It was basically the first central bank, basically. It was the Bank of England, okay? So we complain about central banking a lot of the time. A lot of people do this. And you're like, is this thing normal? Was it always going to happen? Was it inevitable that if we had a money system, some kind of monetary system to help us do our trade, conduct our trade easier and more efficiently, was it inevitable that we're going to have some kind of central bank? Well, yes and no. I mean, I'm not an economist. I don't really understand these things to save my life. Even though I'm really good at maths, but I just can't understand economics and banking and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like that. They're like, economics is just, it's like a foreign language, okay? But what I do understand, I understand enough to know that central banking, a central bank, the idea of a central bank in itself, it's a parasitic idea. I mean, I don't want to veer off now. I can make other videos about banking or whatever, but the point is that this whole web that we call the New World Order, that people like Orwell wished to warn us about in his book, is just an inversion of what a benevolent global empire is supposed to be. And part of it is, a big part of the entire problem is this propaganda that they do through outlets like BBC and whatever. I mean, that we generally call fake news the past few years, ever since Orange Man came to prominence. So it's a massive web. I mean, this is just one strand of it here that we watched, and it's unraveling. People like Musk are fighting it. People don't like him. They think he's part of the conspiracy. Frankly, you're stupid if you think so. I'm gonna just come out and say it, because you really have no proof other than, oh, but Neuralink. How's that an argument? That's just two words. It's just a phrase, but Neuralink. How is but Neuralink an argument? No, it's not an argument. Anyway, on that note, I hope you enjoyed the video, but didn't enjoy watching BBC guy. At least we enjoyed watching Musk's comeback, so we'll leave it there for now. So if you enjoyed, please subscribe, pass this on, and there's going to be more reaction videos to come now that I've got my act together with my two cameras and the whole setup is a little bit more professional. with my Greek statues here and everything. Okay. Till next time, ladies and gentlemen.